All right, happy Saturday, everybody. It's not an infrequent occurrence with this administration that I hear a story being reported and I see that everybody's initial reaction is to be gravely concerned about this occurrence and view it in very negative ways. And that was my initial response to a story that was reported late yesterday that the White House had cut the number of staffers for the National Security Council working at the White House by roughly 50%. That's one piece of information, as is typical of this administration. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't know anything about national security. I don't know anything about the National Security Council. The one thing that I do know is that the way that they went about doing it was incredibly shitty. They told these roughly 100 National Security Council staffers at 4:30 that they were being dismissed from the National Security Council at the White House and they had 30 minutes to clean out their desks. So, a couple things. When there's something that happens that I don't understand or know anything about, I always give it a day before I talk about it to see some reactions of people who know about those things and people who are smarter than I am in these areas. And now we have some of that information that's coming out about this incident. Second, we can all agree that getting fired at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday and being told that you have 30 minutes to clean out your desk is a bad thing. That's not the way you want to do that thing. Today, I found out through reputable reporting that the vast majority of those people were not fired. I don't know that any of them were fired because the staffers at the National Security Council at the White House typically come from other national security agencies within the government, and these people are simply being reassigned back to those agencies. And so it doesn't look like very many, if any at all, have actually been fired. Okay. And then it reminded me of another thing related to the National Security Council that took place 6 or 7 weeks ago that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But on this first thing, from the Washington Post, scores of staffers, it was about 100 people, at the White House National Security Council were abruptly dismissed Friday as the Trump administration moved to dramatically downsize the coordinating body. The staff who was sent home, because it was at the end of the day on Friday, included both career officials who were detailed to the National Security Council and some political appointees. And the cuts were made under Trump's new national security advisor, Marco Rubio, who is also serving as Secretary of State. I guess he's like the congressional librarian or something now too. And it follows, the things with Mike Waltz, who got fired, and in his stuff in the Signal chat and classified info and the Houthis and all of that crap. So one thing, so then I was able to find the following. Trump allies have called for the administration to follow an older model of the National Security Council utilized by a guy named Brett Scowcroft, who's National Security Advisor when I was a kid. And he kept a very small staff at the White House. So there's precedent for that. Then I read reporting that under Biden and Obama, they greatly enlarged the numbers of national security staffers that were at the White House to a level that is not typical in modern history. So they greatly expanded the National Security Council staff, and that's what Trump kind of inherited, and he wants to trim it down. And some of the experts that I read, they're like, that's fine. Two experts said, the NSC policy staff should be streamlined to about 60 people. But they said if you're going to do that, it requires that the president delegate greater authority to those national security agencies where those people came from. Something that is hard to imagine under Trump's personalized style of leadership, where he wants to do everything. And so it's shitty the way that they did it. It's not unprecedented to trim the staff by this much to get down to the levels where Trump is at. I think the levels where Trump is at still exceeds kind of the historical number of National Security Council staffers, but he's certainly not going to grant additional power to national security agencies. He doesn't even believe our own intelligence apparatus, you know. But all of this reminded me of another story, and I went back and found an article also from the Washington staff from April 3rd of this year. The White House fired at least 5 key aides on the National Security Council staff Thursday, a day after far-right activist Laura Loomer visited the Oval Office and demanded that 10 people be fired. Fucking Laura Loomer, man. Trump acknowledged the move. You know, he called Laura Loomer a great patriot. He's like, I'm not making personnel decisions based on Laura Loomer, but she's a great patriot. Sometimes I listen to her recommendations. She's never had a job in government. She knows jack shit about national security or intelligence. And it's like she'd read stuff on Twitter about these guys and went into the Oval Office and was allowed to go into the Oval Office with the President of the United States and the National Security Advisor and some of these guys and scream at them in front of the president and demand that they be fired. And Trump's like, okay, that's cool. And he fired 5 of them because Laura Loomer told him to. This was just like 6 weeks ago. Loomer, a far-right influencer who has the president's ear, frequently makes inflammatory anti-Islam and anti-immigrant comments on social media, as well as conspiratorial statements such as 9/11 was an inside job. So that's where Donald Trump's getting his national security personnel recommendations from. During last year's presidential debate, she posted on Twitter that if Vice President Kamala Harris was elected, the White House will smell like curry and White House speeches will be facilitated via a call center, a negative reference towards Kamala Harris's Indian ancestry. During her meeting with Trump, Loomer went over a list of 10 names that she believes should be dismissed because they were disloyal or had worked for people that Laura Loomer does not like. Reached by phone, Loomer said she has long conducted opposition research on her own initiative and was very happy to see there's a swift response to her report. So, you know, I mean, put it this way. Given some of the things that some of these experts are saying, if this was a normal president and a normal administration, I'd be like, okay, he seems to be operating within the normal bounds, more or less. But it's Donald Trump, so he's just fucking everything up. And yeah, so I guess we'll just, as with everything else, we'll just have to wait and see how bad it's going to get. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have a great weekend.